grab my end too. All right.
Recording in progress.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is David Yocum with TrendSpider, and he's going to walk us through a presentation of a lot of things that I have yet to discover with this app, and then go into details on many things I never even thought of in this app, I'm sure. And at the same time, offering a really great deal for our members, too. David, take it away.
Yeah, appreciate the intro. Just a little bit about myself. I do work with the TrendSpider team. Been here for about a year. I actually got involved in the market. I started when I was 14 years old with a custodial account. Once I found out you can draw some lines and click some buttons to make $1 million is how I got hooked into it, right? So just really fell in love with charts. It's always something that's fascinated me, and from there, just been, tried every different technique: day trading, swing trading, long term, and have really settled in on swing trading, primarily just equity positions. I do options from time to time if I'm very confident in a play, but other than that, currently working towards my CMT, which is Chartered Market Technician. I'm actually taking my first test tomorrow for that.
Very cool.
So really just trying to get a well-rounded experience with technical analysis. And today just wanted to share some of the things about the platform with TrendSpider, what we have, and also what we're going to be coming out with. And as Jeremy mentioned, we also have a 60% discount for anybody here today, which is going to be BB60 is the code. Jeremy, I'll share that with you, and you're welcome to share that as well.
Very cool.
So just something to keep in mind as we go throughout. And there is a Q&A spot in here. So if anybody has any questions or wants to look at any charts in particular, feel free to shoot a message, and happy to get into it.
Very, very cool.
Let me work on sharing my screen here. Let me know if this is showing up on your end.
Yep, perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, this is the main interface. This is going to be your charts. It's going to be your sidebar. So you're going to have your watch list, as you can see on the right there. Unusual options, seasonality. Those are just a couple of widgets I like to use. So what the kind of going over the basics on the left toolbar, we have just, your normal drawing tools and everything like that, pretty standard with any charting platform. But what kind of helps separate us is going to be this top toolbar, all these different features, along with the sidebar on the right side. So as you can see here, we have the SPY chart open. So going over some of the different features up here, I'll try not to make any of these too long. Kind of just give a brief overview of what we have to offer. And like I said, happy to answer any questions in detail. So starting at the top, we have auto fibs. This is just automatically going to plot fib levels across your chart. So this is going to apply to 5-minute charts, 1-minute charts, daily, weekly, any type of chart. It'll automatically plot it on there for you. And that's all done through the algorithm, just looking for swing highs and swing lows. Won't always be perfect, but just a way to help speed up your analysis. Same thing applies to our auto trends. So you can have the most relevant trend lines by changing the filter up here. So if I just select original, for example, we're going to see a few different trend lines pop up. Let me change my background color so you can see it a little bit better.
So I love the black background, by the way.
Appreciate it. It does help the eyes for sure. I know when I post on my personal Twitter and everyone's like, it's blinding me at nighttime. So maybe I should make the switch over.
I've got this 32-inch monitor, and like when there's a white background, it just makes me look like a ghost on camera. So
right.
I always run with the black screen.
Yeah, it's definitely better for the eyes. I will conclude with that for sure. So this is our auto trends here. As you can see, there's 2,000 lines is the max. Kind of looks like a Star Wars scene.
Looks like one of my charts.
Yeah, right. But this just helps show the capabilities. Let me switch the background color here again. All this is customizable, by the way, so colors of your chart and all that.
Nice.
But with this trends, obviously there's 2,000 lines there, so that's not what we're going to want to look at usually. You can change it to just the most relevant trend lines, and now we can see these lines here. So these are going to be great for finding what our program thinks is the most relevant. how many times its price has reacted off of it. And any of these that show up, you can always double click to save it to your chart. And then when you turn off trends, you'll still have it there. So it can be pretty useful just for finding certain trend lines that you might not have seen before. So we do also have our indicator list. This is going to be up to 188. Soon, though, we are going to be coming out with custom scripting. It's going to be via JavaScript. So rather than, a made up language like Pine or anything else like that, you're going to have a bunch of capabilities with that. So
Very cool.
Hopefully that's sooner rather than later. My guess would be here in the next few months. We do have some other cool things. So data flow is going to be coming out, which is going to show you all the different unusual options across the entire market into one feed, and also earnings and tons of different kind of data sets that will go into that. Ratio charts, fundamentals. So we're going to be bringing PE, ratio, price to sales, all the main different fundamental stuff you're looking for. So going to be pretty extensive and definitely looking forward to that. We do have, I'm going to skip candle patterns here. That's just going to be your basic, trying to highlight inside candles, outside candles, hundreds of candles within this list. But what we recently came out with, which is my current favorite
Yes.
tool, is going to be our chart patterns.
I was playing with that the other day. Pretty awesome.
It's sweet. It saves a lot of time. Currently, we only have the triangles, but here in the next few weeks, we're going to be having double tops, double bottoms, and then we're going to follow that up with cup and handle, head and shoulders. So a good amount of different patterns.
Very cool.
But just to show off some of these, I'm actually going to scan for them real quick. We have these built-in scanners. So I'm just going to look for symmetrical triangles in the S&P 500. You can use this on different time frames. So maybe you want to find a symmetrical triangle on the 5-minute during the trading day. You can always scan for that. But let me see if anything pops up here. I'm going to try out Walmart. Usually they've had some of these chart patterns here recently. Let's see. Nothing quite yet. Of course, when we're on Zoom here, it's going to be loading a little bit slower than usual.
Oh, yeah.
That's just my luck. So
No worries.
Let's try a couple more. We're bound to find one. We'll do Macy's. There's a triangle for you. So this is an ascending triangle. You can see if you just toggle this on and off, it'll be there. But any chart you look at, any time frame, it's going to automatically recognize these patterns and it's going to save them. As I mentioned earlier, you can always double click and it'll be able to save. So definitely a pretty neat feature. Like I said, you can scan forms. So this one just popped up and we have 2 different triangle patterns happening here. So definitely something, unique and definitely saves time. And if you have certain criteria, you look for certain patterns, definitely give that a shot. From here, we have our heat map. This is a proprietary to TrendSpider. This is going to help you find levels of interest using previous consolidation. It's going to look for where there's a lot of wicks and price action. So it's going to be able to pop up with all these different areas. We don't necessarily call them support or resistance for liability reasons, but
Right.
We do like to say they're points of interest. So definitely can provide some decent levels.
We use that term a lot. Points of interest, points of control, pivots. I mean, it's a mixed bag of different ways to arrive at the same conclusion.
Right.
Very cool.
Right. And as you know, support can always turn into resistance and vice versa. So
Yes,
points
sir.
of interest usually is a better, well-rounded approach. So from the heat map, we have our other data. This will be the last thing on this top here that I'll show. Now, other data is very extensive. If you click the 3 dots, you'll see everything we have. Analyst estimates, dark pool volume. So you can see that is 3 to 5 weeks delay, just because obviously it does take time for that to get reported.
Right.
But you can see that on the chart. Dividends, earnings. If you're a crypto trader, we have Fear and Greed Index, which is just a certain indicator that we have. We do have the FRED data. So looking at Federal Reserve economic data, market breadth, mentions on Wall Street bets, retail activity percentage, short volume. So like I said, tons of different things in there.
No kidding.
But I'll highlight a couple of my favorite, being market breadth. So market breadth is very important to me, at least when you're looking for, the externals of the market, seeing how everything's performing on a relative basis. So for example, here, if I change this, we'll look at, you can do different sectors and industries. I'm going to do S&P 500. So we're going to look at the net 52-week highs versus new lows. So what percent of stocks are making highs versus lows? As you can see here,
Awesome.
pretty even. Recently, we did have 28 or 27 stocks make new highs. And this is just calculated by how many are making new highs versus new lows. So at least 27 was the difference for how many are making new highs. So as I mentioned, you can compare this against different lists. So maybe you want to look at, let's say, the energy sector, for example. How many stocks in the energy sector are making highs versus lows? You can see it's been pretty stagnant. But this was a good warning earlier this year, back in January, to show that energy could have been a leading name this year. And obviously, we've seen that time and time again throughout the sector. So definitely very useful for finding current leaders, potential new leaders, laggards, and all that. So that's going to be our market breadth. I'll go over our Fred data as well. So anything from interest rates, as you can see here, I have the effective federal funds rate, but we actually have, I think our CEO the other day said we have up to 80,000 lists within this Fred data.
Wow.
So maybe let's look at 30-year fixed rate mortgages in the US. You can see exactly how those pop up, currently around 6.49%. So definitely cool to use. You can see how it correlates with the market. You can see we're pretty stagnant with these rates. And suddenly at the top, of course, we started to see the rise. So you can see a pretty good correlation in interest rates with the market. So that's going to be our Fred data. Lastly, the other thing I wanted to show is going to be our retail activity percentage. What this is going to show is what percent of all retail activity across the market is coming into one particular name. So for example, SPY here, that makes up about 4% of all retail activity per day. If we look at Apple, for example, they're also around 4%, some days being higher.
Ha! Diamond
But
pattern. Sorry.
yeah, that's what I've been watching. I actually took
Yes.
puts here following this fake breakout, and cashed out yesterday for 50%. Didn't feel too comfortable swinging that in this market because
Yeah.
we could be up 100% tomorrow. So
I've
it's
been I've been talking about diamonds for a while, and I love how they love to fake a breakout and then rip the other way.
right.
Just awesome, awesome trading data, and it's great to see that. And I draw a lot of lines on my chart, and I love using TrendSpider to kind of back my knowledge and go and look at, okay, well, did I miss anything? I can kind of check it. But better still, I mean, all this other stuff I didn't really have time to mess with. This is awesome. This is so much more than I imagined already.
Yeah,
Very cool.
it's great. I mean, and really, it's just hats off to our dev team. The guys that work over there work. I swear they work 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
just constantly putting code in, and we're over 5 million lines of code now at this point.
Wow.
So just very, very extensive stuff, and I mean, they're great. I can't take any of the credit for that. That's for sure.
It takes a lot. I'm good friends with a software developer, and man, the amount of stuff that guy can get done in minutes as far as coding goes. I know coding is a lot of lines, but some coders are just like, oh yeah, this just naturally flows through their fingertips, sort of like price action flows to us. It's just you get to get the lizard brain going, and it just you instinctively know what to do. Kind of the
Right.
same practice, but then combine the two. That's hard to find developers that trade and write code, but they're
Yep.
out there.
Yeah, and that's one thing we like to highlight about our company too, is we're about 45 people, I think, right now, and I'd say probably 95% of us trade on a daily basis. So
Awesome.
we really know what traders are looking for, and that's why we've been able to build these tools, and obviously hear feedback from people like yourself and any of the customers of the product. So obviously that's how we continue to grow. So um, definitely appreciate that. So With this too, I was going to show off our retail activity percentage. My favorite example of this is going to look at GameStop. Um, so before we go back, do you have any guess on what percent of retail activity you think was in GameStop on those couple days
Ooh,
across the market?
I would say upwards of 8%. 8% would be my guess.
That's a really good guess. So it's actually going to be 9.4, um, which is if you think about
That's pretty high.
Apple, you think about Tesla, you think about Spy, 9.4% of all retail activity across the market was in GameStop on this day.
Yeah.
Um, and you can see that's actually where we found our top. So one could say retail traders like to get into things late.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we saw here. Um, Another thing we do, I guess I'll go add this to, is our mentions on Wall Street Bets, which we added shortly after that.
And you could
Shows
correlate the two, I'm sure. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, look at this. It's
Oh
the
man.
peak of how many people were talking about it was the peak in price action.
That's
I'm not going
awesome.
to get into maybe if that should have ever ended or if Robinhood just screwed everybody, but in either case, the data lines up pretty well with what we're looking at on the chart. So
That's a dirty word in that circle.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, very, very interesting stuff. Definitely give that a shot. Other data is where you'll find that. Tons of cool features within there. So lastly, I'm going to show off this fancy little sidebar. I will mention we have a market scanner and strategy tester just in the essence of time. I won't go over that, but you can backtest any strategy. You can scan for any certain technical criteria. I've built I think I have over 300 scans myself in here now. So like to just be diverse in that area. But this toolbar here, you can see the unusual options flow. I'll look at a good example. We'll say Tesla probably gets a good amount of flow that we can look
Oh
at.
yeah.
So you can full screen this to see all the orders. And then this graph is going to show you all the orders based on premium, strike price, and expiration date. We do have percent of open interest. So for example, it looks like 5 minutes ago, there was a trade for the 170 puts expiring in December of this year at $622,000 in premium for the puts.
Wow.
So this data, I love following flow. My favorite stock of this year, which I found at $22, and it's now at 50, was STMG. I had actually added up all the numbers and made a post on Twitter saying there was $50 million in call flow for this name, and the
Wow.
market cap was, I think, 200 million. So like just a crazy proportionate number of call flow, and you
That's
can see
awesome.
in this bear market, it's had over 100% run, and if you're counting it from the bottom, it's a little over 500%. So
Are
um,
they in the CNG business? Compressed natural
they
gas.
are they're tankers, so they ship oil and all that, which made sense with the war going
Yep.
on, and needed more demand for that. So
That's like
um,
I caught some news indicators that were like, put my focus on that sector for a little while, but I could never find a decent company in the tanker business that looked like it was going to be bullish, and then I missed this one.
yeah.
Good call.
Yeah, and this popped up in my screener. I like to look for stocks that are above their EMAs, and then when everything started to curl and everything back in December, January, this name was popping up on my 52-week high list, which I was like, that's pretty interesting considering the market we're seeing. So
Right.
obviously you can see how that turned out with the chart, but um, that's our unusual options. Very, very neat. You can always full screen this and highlight the trades themselves to see what's going on. You can see very little red and very large green everywhere. So definitely looking pretty bullish. Seasonality is another great one I love to use.
Yes.
You can see for this stock, March over the last 13 years of its life is positive. Another good example that people like to look at is for SPY. So you can see 67% of Decembers are positive, the Santa Claus rally, as people like to call it.
Yep.
Median percent change 0.6%. The cool thing about this, and this is getting a little grimy with what we have, but you can filter out seasonality. So for example, if you don't want us to have the COVID year within the data set, you can exclude that. So I'll just say 2020, and now it'll change the data. You can say March of 2020,
Oh,
and
cool.
it'll just, I mean, very, very grimy details, but I like to kind of just show off the capability of it. So,
Yeah, no, that's very
um,
useful.
yep. And this is monthly. You can go down to week of the year, see how it performs. How does each day of the week perform? Hour of the day. I mean, pretty neat stuff in there. So um, that's really about the basics of what I wanted to show. Of course, we do have more within widgets, but just in the interest of time, I'm not going to try to bore everybody with that. So um,
Oh,
happy
our,
to field any questions or hear what you think.
our people love boring. Go for
Yeah.
it.
Okay. I was about to say, if you want me to, I can go over a couple others things in here
Absolutely.
if you're
Yeah,
interested.
this is good stuff. I mean, this is much more than I've gotten to mess with in this application. And man, I'm baffled now. I'm going to have to a little more focus on it.
Yeah, yeah, it's very overwhelming, and that's what we found our biggest obstacle is with our product is the education side of it.
Right.
Because if you, it's hard to know it's there because there's so many buttons to click. But once you kind of figure out and have someone tell you what's there, it definitely all starts to kind of click together.
Well,
Um,
it's one thing we focus on at Bullish Bears is like we know that our focus is to try and make everything as simple as possible. And I get it. You know, it's better to have simplicity because sometimes you can't react fast enough when you've got too much work to do, and you need to take a trade. You know, you might miss a move because you spent too much time overanalyzing. But understanding all the mechanics involved and all how all that boring stuff works, so to speak, gives you a much broader knowledge of how to develop that into some simplicity for yourself. Like I'm always talking about how all the complex moving parts of options trading can be simplified, and you can just take advantage of the move if you just know how it all works. You kind of find the sweet spot for where your trade should be. So same difference. I mean, we love being able to get into all the details of stuff and then focus it down to where we can make it simple. So
right.
this is very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, top-down approach. I love to kind of look at, the overall market on the weekends, and then during the day, once I have my, bigger thesis, obviously dive into the daily charts, the hourlies and all that. So um,
Right.
tons of different ways to approach the market. But I see we do have a couple questions. So I see a couple chart requests. I'll go over that here
Yeah.
after I answer a couple other questions. Um, Arthur asked, what differentiates your product from FinViz? So our scanner is pretty easy to use. The difference is we don't have some of the fundamental data yet, which we are coming out with that FinViz has. So looking at or trying to compare, PE ratios and looking at that. Currently don't have that, but in terms of data, like I showed, Fred data, unusual options, we kind of just have a more all-in-one product is kind of like how I like to mention it. So trying to get rid of the need of 100 different subscriptions from a live news feed, unusual options data, Fred data, um, seasonality, just trying to bring it all into one simple charting platform. So that's how I would explain the difference. And Arthur also asked what kind of tutorials are offered. We do have a TrendSpider University, tons of articles and documents, but the main thing I always like to mention is we actually have a customer support team that will offer free one-on-one demos. So they'll sit down with you for an hour and just walk you through the product, answer questions, help you build a scan, really whatever you have, they're going to be able to help you out. Those guys are great. So if you're interested in trying it out, definitely recommend hitting up customer support on the chat there and asking for a demo.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so the other couple things I wanted to mention here on the sidebar while we're at it would be our notes. So you can write notes on any chart or just across all charts. And so, for example, if I take a trade on this today, it's a great way of logging it. You can create your notes for how you traded, some of the emotions you were feeling, anything like that. Along with that too, we have our live news feed, which is from Benzinga. So whenever you switch a stock, you'll be able to see the different news that has come out recently for that one. Alerts. So setting alerts within the platform, you can set those on horizontal levels, trend lines, MACD crosses, anything like that. And then last thing, I'd say analyst estimates. I think it's pretty neat. You can see exactly what analysts are saying about a certain stock. So Tesla, for example, you'll see all the different ratings, where they're coming from. And actually, since we're mentioning Tesla, and my favorite example for insider trading, which we have, if you want to look at Elon Musk, what's he doing? How's it correlate? You can see all the trades he's making. If I click his name, it'll separate his data. So you can see recently he had $2 billion on a sale, $1.1 billion on a sale, 800 million on a sale. So, this is one of those things where you're going to have to go to a different software or platform and have 8 different tabs open, but we have it here. So,
Right. And I love that you can focus down to which insider specifically. That is really
yep.
cool.
Yeah, and you can you can separate it by directors, 10% owners, or you can go to if I want to look at what's the CFO doing, here's his transactions. So pretty sweet stuff. And you can also just click it to see the actual SEC filing. So I mean,
Awesome.
it's really just everything you need in terms of insider trading on it.
One day someone will be looking at data on insider trading at TrendSpider. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it correlates pretty well if you look at what the big tech CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg,
Yes.
Elon, what they were doing last year. Could have seen this year coming pretty far away.
Yeah. No
You know,
kidding.
it's man, they tend to know things we don't, and they time their investments pretty well with it. So, pretty crazy stuff.
They're pretty good at that, and we're always all about like technical analysis over here. So like oftentimes when we hear it in the news, you'll get the hype movement from price, but oftentimes the chart will tell us ahead of time what we're about to see volatility. We know that, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden the news comes out and like, aha, we knew. By the time the
Right.
news is already done with it, we already made our trade.
Yeah.
It's cool to have a
It's
little bit ahead.
yeah, it's always nice to have that kind of hype coming in, especially if you were trading any of the SPACs back then.
Oh yeah,
CCNIV, Lucid, all those. GGPI was one of my favorites. I mean,
we nailed a
if
few of
you could
those.
time
Those were fun.
it, they were for sure. Arthur also asked on the points of interest zones, does it show put call ratio? We have a variation of it. So let me pull up our unusual options here just so you can see it. You can click money at strike. So it's not going to necessarily tell you the exact put to call ratio, but it's going to show you the difference in what orders are coming in at certain spots. So let me filter this down a little bit. You can see for the end of this month, a good amount of puts are coming in for the 170, 175 strike price versus maybe a quarter of that for the call side. So it's not necessarily put call ratio, but it does help kind of show you what the ratio would be for that area.
I love that it's a visual, so you can actually see it a little better. I know
Right.
percentages matter, but when you see it on a chart or a graph like this, it's much easier to have a visual and be like, okay, there's definitely more puts than calls there.
Right.
That's
Right.
good to know.
It's definitely sweet. You can find support and resistance zones using it is how I've seen people use it. So like if you see a ton of puts up here, people are going to try to protect that position, the big funds and all that. So tons of different ways to interpret that. But going back to what Arthur had asked, we'll do a couple of chart requests if anybody's interested in doing that, looking over some charts. Let me pull up energy. So he said XLE. This one has been a very interesting chart. Everyone's been talking about energy. What's energy doing? What's the dollar doing? Those have been two of the hot topics of this year. Jeremy, do you want to give your input on maybe what you're thinking for energy?
Sure. Let me dig my chart out. I gotta pull it up
Sorry to
first.
put you on the spot.
Oh, it's okay. I just got to switch it to a different screen so I can utilize it. There we go. I've been actively trading natural gas this year, but
Mhm.
I like XLE. in some cases because I can go and it's low enough to where you can actually trade some spreads on it very readily. And
Hmm.
it also gives you a great idea of a market sentiment. So let me get XLE up real quick here.
Okay. Let me make sure here. I'll stop sharing my screen here. Um, Stop share. And then let me make sure you have the ability to do that. Okay, yeah, you should be able to share.
There we go. Let me see. Got to find the right screen. Oh, my monitors are backwards now. I moved them.
Mm.
Monitor 1 is this one now. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see my screen okay. Although it won't record it very well. I had to record it from a different monitor. So I'm looking at this as nice bullish trend, but we're looking at a break over here on the weekly chart. I always start with the weekly and run my way back, and we're kind of at a support point that's critical. This bar here is our point of interest for control, and then we got possibly retracements down to about 80 bucks, it looks like. Okay, cool. Sorry, it's on my small monitor way above, so the numbers are really small. I got to squint to see them.
Yeah.
So we're bearish at least for the next few days, it looks like. Probably got control at about 83, 82, and then straight to 80 that I can see in the short term.
Yeah.
Generally a bearish sentiment, bearish descending channel at the moment. Looking at the 2-hour chart, we can see a retracement possible, but this is looking like a rest for a measured move more than anything. Overall,
Yeah,
I'd be bearish on this.
I was gonna say too, if I'm not sure if you have it on there, but do you have the monthly time frame that you could look at by chance?
Sure do.
It's
Oops.
at a pretty interesting spot.
Ah, nice
It's
little.
it's at the 2007 2008 highs currently is what I'm seeing on it. Pretty interesting spot.
So we're looking right
It's
in
showing
here.
different on your end.
That is
That's
weird.
interesting.
This is Weeble, so it might be a little weird.
Hmm.
It is XLE.
Interesting.
Let me draw a pivot
Yeah,
there.
that's I wonder if there's a split at some point or
That might be.
um,
Sometimes it'll track it differently on different platforms when there's been a split, and I think XLE did split at one point, if I recall.
interesting. Yeah, on mine it's showing we're getting rejected currently at the 2007 2008 highs of energy, which is definitely a key spot in my opinion to watch.
That is strange that this doesn't show it with that split involved there. Weird,
Yeah,
but yeah, I can still see it correlates though because it's the same pivot. It's just basically a 50% retracement, which is expected on a parabolic
right,
rise like this. Usually you just
right.
go halfway target, and that puts it right in line with at least coming back to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, we could go as low as 60 bucks.
Yep.
Very cool.
It's kind of what I mean, I think this could be a blow off type situation, blow off the top type
Yep.
energy. I think energy would be the last domino to fall to for us to find that bottom that I've been looking for at least.
Yeah, and then we've been looking at SPY for quite a while, and we know that one of the things on the weekly chart even would suggest lows as low as like 340, which is unfortunate for a lot of investors, but that's something that we're kind of looking at. And there's several sectors within that can kind of bring that over, and energy is definitely kind of one of the ones to watch, as
Right.
well as banking. We've noticed that the banking sector is kind of leaning towards some serious bearishness, and I've been kind of talking about some data points on that. What I can see with the amount of people who either refinanced or bought new homes through the pandemic when the rates were really super low, and then you had all of this QE, all of this money printing, which inevitably leads to more inflation, and we've been seeing inflation just out of control. And it kind of reminds me, like, think about the financial institutes who lend this money out, and then that loan becomes worth less value as the dollar value falls. So it's like when that rate exceeds the interest rate being paid on those loans, how are the banks going to stay up? So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
uh,
It's pretty crazy stuff. And something I found out the other day, which I thought you might find interesting, is though energy is important, I think the most important chart in the market right now is Apple, because Apple
yes,
is actually a bigger market cap than the entire energy sector combined, which
yep.
is an insane stat. Like, just they own the world at this point.
And it's funny because we were just talking about this morning where we mentioned a little bit. They're considering moving production out of China as China's
Yep.
kind of destabilizing. That's going to be expensive. That's going to cost a lot of money to make that happen, and that comes straight out of the equity. So I mean, you look at Apple; it's 7% of SPY,
Mhm.
and that's enough to make markets move. So yeah, that can be another definite contributing factor to looking at those 340 support levels, maybe even
Right.
going lower. So,
Right. That's what I'm thinking as well.
oh my
It's
goodness.
scary how much of a monopoly they got going on now.
Could you imagine an Apple reverse split? Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
would actually appreciate that because the float would be smaller, but
Yeah. No, that would be definitely insane. Um, looks like we don't have any other questions coming in here. Um, Jeremy, really appreciate you allowing me to come in and chat with your group. It's a pleasure, and hopefully it's something we can make normal over the
yeah,
next period of time. So
dude,
really do appreciate it.
you're welcome anytime. And I always love nerding out with anybody I can about charts. Ask everybody. Like, I get involved when it comes to charting, and like anybody I can nerd out with, dude, it's just it's just like empowering. And then
Yep.
we always call it like it takes a village and kind of a community think tank, so to speak. You get more eyes on the market, you get more different aspects of looking at it, and you combine them all. You can actually work together as a group and make some really nice returns doing that. So
Right.
you know,
Yep, absolutely. Always down to talk shop, and always willing to share charts. Also, if you do want to connect with me on Twitter, it is Yocum's Charting. It's just my last name there, followed by charting. So,
okay,
if anybody has any questions about the platform or just charts in general, always happy to talk like we did here today. So, yeah, thanks again.
very cool. We can make this a weekly thing if you're interested. I'd be totally down for that.
Yeah, my boss might get into me there for putting in some time. So
Understood.
we'll definitely we'll talk about it.
Right
Yeah,
on. All right,
awesome.
great having you. Great, thanks for hosting this, and thanks for putting this together. This has been kind of something we've been looking forward to for a while now, and man, this is great to get it out. And there's a lot more to this platform that I'm going to go and explore and utilize very
Mhm.
probably today. So
Yeah,
I can't wait.
yeah, yep. Appreciate it again. Thanks. Hope everyone has a good weekend, and remember, risk management's always first.
Yes, risk management is life, right next to price
Yeah,
action.
exactly. All righty. Have a good one. All
You too. Thanks.
right. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Recording